The U.S. Justice and Treasury Departments announced they're taking action against a Russian hacking group known as Evil Corp that has stolen at least $100 million from banks. With us now to dig deeper, Kate Fazzini, who's CNBC.com's cybersecurity reporter, and also Kevin Mitnick, who's the CEO of Mitnick Security Consulting, formerly one of the FBI's most wanted hackers. All right, so Kate, let's start with you. What have you learned about Evil Corp and the way that they were able to bypass cyber walls and all of this to get to the information?
So this is a really interesting case. This was a sophisticated, big group that had, according to the Department of Justice, the buy-in from the Russian government. For a very long time, the Russian government has been accused of using criminals within its borders for government means. It's something that the U.S. government has been trying to prove for a very long time. So this indictment was a huge one for the U.S. government in going that way. It also showed just how corporatized these criminal organizations are. They have CEOs, they have HR departments, they have customer service. If you've been hacked, there's a number you can call to figure out how you can get your money to the hackers. It's a very interesting time, and the Evil Corp indictment really gives you a good picture of that.
All right, so Kevin, let's bring you into this. How do companies go about protecting themselves? Because my sense is everybody knows that there's a risk there. We all have training that says to your employees, hey, if you get a phishing email that looks like this, don't click on it, and people click on it anyway. So what's the first step companies have to do to protect themselves?
Well, security awareness training is number one, so people understand the risks of phishing attacks, for example. But I also believe a part in inoculation, and this is where companies could actually phish their own employees, and when the employee falls for it, then they get a training video to kind of inoculate that person so they don't fall for these types of attacks. In fact, I'm the chief hacking officer of a company called KnowBe4, and that's precisely what we do, is we do security awareness training and simulated phishing. So this is definitely an important mitigation factor. And with the Russian hackers, obviously it's been published that they've used phishing attacks to infect targets with their malware, and it was quite sophisticated malware that was weaponized to bypass typical antivirus products that people might have on their computer. And what's important to realize here is this malware could deploy what we call ransomware. And what ransomware is, it's a type of malware that scrambles all the victims' files, and then they have to pay to get a key to unscramble those files. So this malware is quite sophisticated, and the way these attackers are carrying out these attacks is ordinarily through an email, through phishing.
Jonathan, how much more are you spending as a CEO to protect your company's data or your customers' data than you were 5 or 10 years ago, or 25 years ago, when this was probably not even an item in your budget?
Forget 25 years ago. 10 years ago, we all realized that we needed to do something. And this is where we at Loews Hotels, with 26 properties and 3 under construction, are at a bit of a disadvantage, because the largest names in lodging, the Hyatts, the Marriotts, the Hiltons, have huge technology budgets. That said, we make capital decisions in investing in technology, but security is something that we will not scrimp on. Obviously, we have thousands and thousands of guests on an annual basis that stay with us.
And customer records.
And customer records.
All the stuff that goes with that.
Exactly. And we certainly abide by every state law, anything that is nationally regulated or internationally regulated. And we spend a lot of money and a lot of time keeping the data safe. But it is a very big issue that wasn't on our ability to think about the last couple of years.
Kevin, you've got the concerns about TikTok and whether they're scraping up data and sending videos of kids overseas to China, which has been alleged in a lawsuit in California. You have warnings about our smart TVs turning against us and recording things that are happening in our living room. We have questions about whether Facebook and Apple and Amazon are listening to us through our devices. Every day it's something. Is there any way truly to protect ourselves from the innovative minds of hackers? You were one. Now you are a white hat hacker. How do we do it?
Well, there's a lot of steps to it, but to protect yourself against the Russian hackers, people ought to enable what we call two-factor authentication. So besides putting in their username and password, they have to put in a code that, for example, might be text to their mobile device. For smart TVs, you might consider just like I have, I don't buy a smart TV that has a camera.
Yeah.
And when you're using social networks like TikTok, you have to think about you're not paying for that service. So if you're not paying for the product, guess who the product is? That is you. And when companies like TikTok that are owned by foreign entities in China, you have to think about, well,
Kevin, what about insurance? What about cybersecurity insurance? Does that really insure a company from the bad effects?
Yeah, cyber insurance is definitely a consideration that all companies need to look at. Of course, you have to follow best security practices as part of the underwriting process, but it's definitely something that should be done in every business.